So I don't know if you know this, but Aryaman was a very serious cricketer, played Ranji-level, and that involved a lot of hardship. That includes sleeping in dorms, traveling in overnight trains, some dusty towns, Rewa to Indore. Why did you put yourself through that?
I wouldn't call it hardship, maybe hard work is a better word, but I don't know, I was extremely passionate about the sport at the time. You know, I've played since I was 9. I sort of was good at it, obviously, and pursued it for a while, and sort of got me to Ranji. And so at that time, I didn't think of it very deeply, but you know, I've been thinking about this question a lot of late, and thinking back, you know, I think there was a very innate need to be able to prove to myself and to prove to maybe even people outside family and even the outside world that I can do something and be good at something on my own merit and outside the name of my family. And I can be Aryaman first and then Aryaman Birla. And when you're 15, 16 and frankly come from privilege, you're often seen as your last name. Which when you're that young, you know, you want to get out of that shadow. So I think, you know, cricket at that time gave me a profession that was so far away from business and anything that my family had done, that there was just no way that any of my successes or failures, for that matter, could have been associated with my family name, right? And so I think it really fulfilled that almost angst within me to be able to do something on my own merit and on my own name. And honestly, this is, you know, hindsight is 20/20 vision, and maybe this is hindsight speaking, but I really do believe that it did me a lot of good from that perspective.
Did your parents and family accept this, the fact that you were traveling so extensively under these circumstances, the conditions? You were 16, 17-year-old, you know, it wasn't like you were a grown man. I'm sure they were protective, and how did they kind of deal with that? And how open were they to this?
You know, they sort of never told me anything but the fact that you should go and pursue your passion and dreams. I do remember having a conversation with my mom, and she said, "Ye sab kar lo, but you know, you have to go do your MBA at some point." So fine, fair enough. I said, that's fine. I'll pursue it for a while and see where it takes me. There was obviously a lot of surround sound, right? You can imagine coming from this family. I didn't really know it at the time. And I look back at it now and I'm like, wow, it was really a 180 pivot from anything that this family has ever done before. But my parents never let that come to me. And so in that sense, I was extremely shielded and protected, which, you know, I'm super grateful for.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your childhood? What was life like growing up for you?
I find this question, so I get this question a lot, and I find it very hard to answer this question. Because growing up, I always say we lived a very normal life. You know, we went to school, we played sport, our parents put us in a lot of extracurricular activities, we had our friends, and we lived the same lives that our friends lived. So it didn't seem any different. There was obviously, now that I think about it, in the background, we always knew that, you know, there was a certain responsibility, a certain name that we came from. But I never saw it or thought of it very actively as a child. Maybe subliminally I knew of it, but I didn't think of it, you know, actively at all when I was a kid. And I think that's because our parents never sort of let that come to the fore. So to answer your question, we lived an extremely, what I would think was a normal childhood, where we were exposed to everything from education to sports to other extracurricular activities, and with a lot of fun and friends and family.
When did you become aware that you were from a famous family?
I don't know, I think that's seeing life from a very black and white lens. It's very hard to pinpoint a point in time. But I think I can take you through the journey of how I've come to live with my last name, if that answers the question. So, when I was a kid, I was almost embarrassed of the last name. When you go to school and in third grade and someone comes and asks you, how many cars do you have? I've heard you have a lot of cars. We never thought of it that way or looked at it that way, and jars you a little bit. You're 10 years old. Or when you go, I was playing cricket from a very young age, as I said, and for them, I don't know, at that time I didn't realize, but, it seemed like a big deal, and they asked me similar questions. And so at that age, I was extremely embarrassed of my name. So obviously by that time, I knew that there was something that was a little different. And so I used to almost shy away from the name. So when I used to go play in the Maidans, I used to tell the driver that, just leave me, a kilometer away, 500 feet away. A kilometer is too much. 500 feet away, I'll just walk to the ground so that no one sees I'm coming in a car, for example. But then, as I played cricket and I went deeper into India, which I hadn't done till then, I was living in this Bombay, South Bombay bubble almost. You go deeper into the country and you realize the way that people see you and the name is very different. They say that there's so much respect that, the name brought with it. I was playing somewhere and someone asked me that, I never worked so hard as a kid. Why are you working so hard? And I said, well, I don't know. That's just the way that I guess I'm brought up. And they said, when I was a kid, my parents and we used to be sitting around just watching TV, and my parents used to say, what are you doing? Do you think that you're from the Tata or Birla family? And that really struck me again. And I realized, wow, this is very deep-rooted and deep-seated in our country, and it's something to be extremely proud of. And so I think that embarrassment almost became something that I became extremely proud of. And today, obviously, I'm proud. I guess became more comfortable with it then, and now more proud of it. But it's been a journey. So long answer to your short question was that I don't know when I knew of it, but it's been a journey to get here.
Double click on the Birlas. So G.D. Birla was a close confidant of Mahatma Gandhi and ally, and really aided in the freedom struggle. So what do you think are some of the key contributions of the Birlas?
Are you really testing me on the history of my family? Oh, God. I don't know. I'm not... honestly, I'm extremely proud of a lot of things that the family has done, and I feel a little embarrassed to speak about it. Look, I think the fact that the family has been so intertwined with sort of both the societal, economic development of the country, pre-independence, at independence, like you said, and post-independence. I'm just extremely grateful to be, a messenger to hopefully be able to carry this legacy forward in a manner that I hope I can do justice to.
And now, talking about your career, obviously there's a lot of focus on founders and startups, but you obviously belong to this multi-generational business family. Your father took over at roughly your age, and has grown the business 30 times in the last 30 years, 30x, I think. What kind of pressure do you feel to kind of live up to this amazing legacy in terms of success? And, how will you confront or deal with failure?
There's pressure. I think that's the simple answer. But I think that's not nuanced enough. So, look, I think on one hand, like you said, I see that, seventh generation, what the 6 generations before me have been able to do it's extremely inspiring. So when you look at it from that perspective, there's some pressure. You don't want to be the generation that, it sounds cynical about it, but you don't want to be the generation that messes it up, right? But then you also look at where our country is placed today, where the family businesses are placed today, and then you put yourself in that position, and you say, wow, actually I'm extremely privileged to be in a place where I can add a lot of value, and from a platform that not a lot of people have. So that brings a lot of opportunity and ambition. So I think it's a mixture of pressure, ambition, excitement, fear. So I don't think that it's a straight-jacketed answer. I think there's a lot of emotions and a lot of thoughts that sort of go into this. But honestly, I can, I go through these when I have time and thinking about it actively. But on a daily basis, I see it as it's a great responsibility. It's something that I'm going to try my best to live up to. And it's an opportunity. So yes, there's a lot of these underlying emotions, but I don't think that I actively think about them on a daily basis. Otherwise, it would drive me crazy.
What are the dynamics you share with your immediate family? Obviously, Ananya, hugely accomplished in her own right. Your mother with Empower and the school and so many amazing projects. And of course, your father is a legend in the business industry. What is your kind of personal dynamics with this inner sanctum or circle?
I mean, very different with each person, as you can imagine. I go to different people for very different things. If it's more personal, emotional related things, then I'd probably go to my mom or my younger sister. If it's to do with work, obviously I'd go to my dad. And my mom and sister always sort of tell us to stop speaking about work at home, which we're trying to do. And if it's to do with, if I'm going for an event or have to speak somewhere, I'd go to my older sister. So I share a very different relationship with every member of my family. Everyone, like you said, is obviously on their own path and own journey. So we don't unfortunately get to see each other, the five of us on a dinner table, as often as one would like, or as we would like, but we try our best. So yeah, I think a different relationship with each member of the family.
The Aditya Birla Group has more than, I think, 120,000 employees, and they range from a wide, from stratas of society to age groups. You have some people who are about 75. You'll have people who are 21, 22. How are you going to navigate, culturally, from an HR perspective, the aspirations of like these multi-generations of the workforce?
227,000 actually.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know. I think it's I want to be seen. I want to be personally seen as someone, at least within our organization, who's approachable, who's accessible. I think generally, and I'm not saying this in our case particularly, but if you see large corporate houses or businesses in India that have been around for a long time, have generally been seen as hierarchical in nature. And while I'm not trying to come in and disrupt that on day one, because that's not the way I would work, but in my own way, I would like to sort of break that down a little bit and be someone who is able to enable decisions, enable people to be able to come to me, come to people close to me, voice their opinion without fear, say what they think. So yeah, I think it's a journey. I don't think that it can happen over 1 year, 2 years even. But I would hope that I can sort of be approachable, relatable, and seen as someone who is ambitious and aggressive, but also is empathetic to people and their needs.
What was your experience like at Harvard Business School, and what's one or two lessons that you learned?
Well, I think the greatest lesson I learned is that no one really knows what they're doing. And I think that's extremely powerful. I think Harvard Business School is the pedagogy is a case-based. So you go through 600, 700 case studies of real companies with real issues over a period of time. And you would think that you come out with very concrete answers at the end of each case. And for most of the cases, the answer to any question is, it depends. So you sort of learn, and you would think that you come out with very concrete answers at the end of each case. For most of the cases, the answer to any question is, it depends. So you sort of learn that there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, but you have to have conviction in what you do. Sometimes you may get it right, sometimes you may get it wrong. But I think that was an extremely powerful tool and lesson. And I think just generally as well, and you know, I wouldn't generally have said this, but it is also true that having the credentials of a Harvard Business School, coming back into, you know, as I said, seventh generation, you do build some credibility of your own, and people do see that, oh, you know, you've gone through 2 years of a good business school, etc. So there's a lot of credibility also. So that also brings a lot of confidence. So there's two aspects. I think it's just having gone there, the credibility that you're able to build and the confidence you're able to bring back. And then some of these tangible learnings that you have from there as well.
I have a final couple of questions. You know, obviously the steel business, the cement business, all of these amazing businesses are something that you're pretty excited about. I heard you mention that, especially as we know the whole of our country is under construction. So even though these are unsexy, old world businesses, they seem to be exactly in a sweet spot. So that's great. But you also seem to have a passion for hospitality. You've been an investor in Yaucha, Akasan. You've partnered up with Rahul Akerkar. You have Jolie's. Is that a passion for you?
I'm yes and no. Yes, because yes, I'm passionate about the business. No, because I would be passionate about any business that I think has the ability to do well and create economic value and value for people in general. I generally don't take the view of you have to be extremely passionate to build a business, and partly because I think the way that we've grown up, we've never, in a good way, that privilege, right? We've grown up seeing this diverse portfolio that the group has had, and we've had to play a role across it. And so whether that's cement or aluminum or hospitality or fashion, I don't think I'm more passionate or less passionate about one, because I think that would be doing a disservice to the role that I have to play. So yes, I'm passionate about it because I think it's a great business, and I'm passionate about the people that I work with there, and I'm passionate about building something that can create a real difference in Indian hospitality and hopefully create a more organized sector in that space. So I'm passionate about it from that perspective, but I'm equally passionate about our fashion business or our cement business as I would be about our hospitality business. So if that makes sense.
It does, and I think that's a great note to end on, which is basically your views on the business of fashion. Obviously, you're wearing an amazing Sabyasachi jumper. It's incredible, actually, the portfolio. You have Sabyasachi, Tarun Teliani, Shantu Nikhil, Masaba. That's just on the designer side, but of course, like I think at least 4,000 crore businesses on Louis Philippe, Van Heusen, Alan Solly, Peter England. And then you have things like The Collective, Tasva. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I think next week, it's going to be Galleries Lafayette that you're launching in Bombay. So what's your view on the business of fashion?
Firstly, I'm extremely impressed with your homework. Thank you.
I am qualified in this department.
I know, I realized. Because you said steel instead of aluminum, but that's fine. I let that go. I didn't press on that one. But this is super. No, I think there's just from what we see, I think it's an extremely interesting time to be in this business. I think as we all know and as we sit in this audience, I think Indian consumers today are getting very discerning about what they wear. It's not only about, it's an identity of who they are. And so it matters to them the quality of what they wear, where the fabric comes from, who the designer is, whether it's made in India, whether it's not made in India. So I think that's a very clear shift that we're seeing, and that's extremely exciting. I also think something else that's very exciting is that I think social media and the democratization of information has sort of just opened up all of India as a market today. You know, whether you go even beyond metro cities, today fashion is not just a t-shirt that you wear. Today people want a branded t-shirt. I mean, you take the example of Zudio, which unfortunately is not one of our brands, but has done extremely well, just shows that they've opened up the market beyond the metros, and there's aspiration that goes beyond just Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore. So that's very exciting. It also means that there's a blurring of lines between what's digital and what's physical. Frankly, the only sort of barrier to entry in this business was being able to put up a store 5 years ago. Today, even that doesn't exist, which I say in a manner that I feel excited about, but also scared about because it's a threat to our business. So that has opened up another sort of avenue for growth for fashion. And I think the other thing which I'm extremely excited about is that today I don't think we're consumers as India of Western trends. We're actually setting trends and taking Indian fashion and Indian culture through our fashion outside India, whether that's Sabyasachi opening a store in New York, or that's any other designer opening stores outside India, or whether that's a Louis Vuitton and a Prada taking our culture and some of our fabrics and silhouettes into what they produce and onto their runways and fashion shows. So I think it's an extremely interesting time for fashion in general. And beyond that, I think just Indian culture and the soft power that we're able to sort of garner across our country and the West.
Fantastic. And we're here to cheer you on. Please give it up for Aryaman Birla.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.